All right, welcome to another SEC baseball season preview brought to you by Southern Sports Gumbo. We're going to be talking Vandy baseball tonight. A little recap of their 2025 season. They went 43 and 18 last year, going 19 and 11 in the SEC. Tim Corbin's been at Vandy for 23 years. He's a two-time national champion, 5 trips to Omaha, and 20 appearances in postseason. They haven't made it past a regional since they were runner-ups in Omaha in 2021. So will they get past the regional this year is the big question for them. So I'm going to start a little different here. I'm going to cover a few of their key returners. I'm not going to spend too much time on what they lost. So on the mound, they've got Connor Fennell coming back, who started 7 games a year ago with 17 appearances, was 6-0, struck out a whopping 84 batters in 53 and one-thirds innings. They've also got Austin Nye coming back, who started 15 games, pitched 50 innings, and struck out 58 batters. And then they've got a transfer in Nate Taylor, who had a really small sample size both at Georgia last year with 8 and one-thirds innings, but struck out 17 there, and a small sample size in summer league ball too last year. So I really like the potential that they bring back on the mound, and now some of their lineup guys who are back. You're gonna have Mike Mancini figuring somewhere in either the outfield or at second base, coming off a 270 season where, never really got going, but shows that he's got some pop. You've got Logan Johnstone, who's a transfer, Rustin Rigdon, who is likely going to be an outfielder or a second baseman on this team. He was a true freshman a year ago, hit about 265, stole 19 bases, has a ton of speed. Braden Holcomb is probably their best returner. In limited time last year, only 180 plate appearances. He hit 9 home runs. He's likely going to be your first baseman or your center fielder, maybe even factor into one of the corners in the outfield. Star freshman from last year, Brody Johnston's back, hit 15 home runs last year, hit 260, so expect that average to rise a little bit. They've got a lot of ways that they can bring guys out. At catcher, they're going to have Colin Barsky, who was on their team last year, was a solid player for them. He hit 253 with 8 home runs, 11 doubles, 39 RBIs. He's now a junior, poised to take another step. At first base, you're going to have Max Jensen, who's a transfer. At second base, I've mentioned Mike Mancini and Rustin Rigdon. I also want to mention a transfer they added, Carter Johnston from Cal State Fulton, who hit 7 home runs, 14 doubles, and hit 344 last year. He's a guy who could factor into second as well. Then over at shortstop, they're going to have Riker Waite, who is a sophomore who, didn't really play much last year, only had 6 plate appearances. So he's a guy who they're going to count on a lot at shortstop. But something that I like about this Vanderbilt team for 20 plus years is they always have a solid glove at shortstop who moves into a much better hitter as they progress. Jonathan Vastine was their guy last year, really solid glove. He's off to pro ball. So now we get the next pipeline of star shortstops at this Vanderbilt team. And then I did talk about, Rigdon and Holcomb and Mancini, who are all either going to factor into an outfield spot or potentially second base for Mancini and Rigdon. And then you've got Logan Johnstone, who's going to be playing right field, hit 337 at Washington State last year with 17 doubles and 9 home runs. And then you go to the DH spot where you're going to have a plethora of guys, Mac Whitcomb and Chris Maldonda, are both guys who can play. I also wouldn't count out Carter Johnstone, the left-handed hitter who's going to play second base at times too. So, Vanderbilt's not a team that's just going to hit balls out of the park constantly. Tim Corbin, the way that he's had teams for years is they just play smart baseball in the field and they hit well with runners in scoring position. And I expect nothing less from this year's team. And then I've already talked about Austin Nye, Connor Fennell, and Nate Taylor. That's going to be your opening day three starters with Fennell taking Friday, Nye taking Saturday, and Nate Taylor taking Sunday. From a little bit of experience that they have coming back on the mound too. England Bryan is a guy who only threw 13 innings last year, but he struck out 25 batters doing so. He's a guy I could see taking over a closer role for them. And then some of their top freshmen to watch. They've got a guy by the name of Tyler Bayard, who's likely going to be their fourth starter, midweek guy, or some of those extended weekends that play 4 games. He's got a lot of stuff that he can throw. His fastball sitting around 95 to 98. He's got a nice sweeper that's side to side, change up in the mid to high 80s. So another freshman pitcher is Aiden Stillman, another left-handed pitcher who can push his fastball into the mid 90s. He's got a low 80s slider that just spins like crazy. I don't know how well he adjusts to college in year one, so I think Bayard's their highest upside freshman on the mound. And then a few other transfers that they brought in. They brought in Jacob Faulkner, a right-handed pitcher from Princeton. Then Max Jensen, the first baseman that I mentioned, is a transfer from Cornell. So they went and got some Ivy League guys to bring to the Ivy League of the South, I guess. So a lot of things for this lineup to be happy about. So let me break down their schedule real quick. I'll get to see them play Saturday and Sunday this week. They're going to play Texas Tech, TCU, and Oklahoma State this weekend. They're also going to play Oregon, Arizona, and UC Irvine in a few weeks, which are really good teams. And then for their midweek games, they're going to play Indiana State, which is always an interesting one for me. They're going to play Indiana, and then they're going to have a bunch of these midweek games. They play Xavier too, which is a quality game. But they're going to have a lot of these midweek games where they're going to get to run guys in and out um, in the field, try some things out. When they come to SEC play, they've got LSU, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Texas, and South Carolina at home. They play in a ballpark that feels larger than it is. So Tennessee's going to be a team that takes some time to adjust that weekend. But hosting LSU and Texas are two really tough home stints. And then traveling to Mississippi State is their biggest road series. They'll also go to A&M, Kentucky, Alabama, and Missouri. So they do pretty well with the teams they miss in Arkansas, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, and Ole Miss. 4 of those teams are preseason top 25 teams. So I'd get them somewhere around one of the top 5 easiest schedules in the SEC. By no means is it an easy schedule overall. Every schedule except for maybe Texas in the SEC is challenging. So few of my breakout players for Vanderbilt this year. I really love Rustin Rigdon, a guy who can play everywhere on the field. Through spring they have said he is far and away the best second baseman they have. He was projected to play center field early on. So I could see him playing left, right, center, or second base this year. And then I think their pitching staff's poised for some breakouts. Austin Nye is a guy who's going to push his fastball up to 100. He's got a low 80s slider mid-80s cutter that had a 46% whiff rate last year and a high 70s changeup that had a 60% whiff rate. And he's got a curveball that he throws too, so a true five pitch mix for him. I think they've got as far as Fennel and Nye, Ace 1A and Ace 2 or 1B. They're that talented on the mound. And then England Bryan, a guy I mentioned who pitched 13 innings last year, and struck out 25. I think he's poised for a breakout role in the bullpen this year. Any thoughts on them, Sweets?
Yeah, first of all, I mean, listen, when you're talking about Vanderbilt baseball, one thing that's not going to happen is you're not going to outcoach him. Okay, Tim Corbin is as good a coach, on field coach as there is in America. So that being said, he's always going to have his teams prepared in ball games. I like what they did. They brought in a ton of transfers where they needed them. They brought in Bo Rudy, a kid from Georgia who had committed to Tennessee, ended up at Kennesaw State for his freshman year. Now he's in the SEC at Vanderbilt. He's a pitcher who can step in and if they give him the pill, he can deal. This kid's a really talented kid. Like I said, I like what they've done across the board. They brought in some hitters here, and the thing about Corbin, like I said, just the way he coaches. I remember being at a coach's clinic, and he was there, and he talked about just gave a master class on hitting behind the runner. The way he talked about it, the way he has his players take the approach and stuff, is just such a cerebral guy. A lot of fun to go. Yeah, really smart guy. Yeah, Vanderbilt should be decent there. What did you have their record as, DMAC? What was your call?
So I am going to go with, let me get a quick look at their schedule again. 19 and 11 last year. I'm going to have them at 17 and 13 this year.
I was 17-13 too. So okay. Yeah, you're 17-13 as well. So thanks.
I would actually probably go a little lower than that. I think Corbin is I used to think he was the best coach in the SEC, and I think he was at that time. I think Jay's passed him. I think Vitello passed him. Granted, he's not in it anymore. He'll get the best out of this team. Like you guys have said, he does a great job. I just think the talent level on the team is a little less than it's been. Top end pitching. They have solid pitching, they have a solid team. I don't think they have the top end talent in either spot. I would probably go 13, 17, 14, 16 with this Vandy team. That's just me.
That's a wrap on Vandy baseball tonight. We have one more season preview we're going to be doing, and then it'll be a wrap. We're ready for the season. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. We're going to continue bringing great baseball content all year.